Hello students, let us start lesson 6 life processes lecture 9. In my last lecture I discussed with you three pathways by which glucose or food is breakdown. On the basis of these pathways I discussed with you aerobic and anaerobic respiration in brief. Here in this lecture I will discuss with you aerobic and anaerobic respiration in detail. Okay, let me start. Aerobic respiration in plants and aerobic respiration in animals, for example fishes and human beings. In first step, glucose is breakdown into pyruvate in the cytoplasm of the cell. During this pathway, two molecules of ATP are formed. In second step, pyruvate is breakdown into CO2 and water in the presence of oxygen. During this step, 36 ATP molecules are formed. So 2 plus 36 equal to 38 ATP molecules are formed all over this aerobic respiration. Let us talk about anaerobic respiration in fungi, for example yeast and plants. It is also known as alcoholic fermentation. Why is it known as alcoholic fermentation? Because during this anaerobic respiration, alcohol in the form of ethanol is formed, as you can see in the steps. In first step, glucose is breakdown into pyruvate in the cytoplasm of the cell. During this step, two molecules of ATP are formed. Pyruvate in the absence of oxygen further breakdown into ethanol and CO2. During second step, no energy is released. All over this pathway, two molecules of ATP are formed. Here, ethanol have molecular formula C2H5OH. OH indicate alcohol. Anaerobic respiration in animals, especially in muscles, after vigorous exercise. It is known as lactic acid fermentation because lactic acid is formed, as you can see, during this anaerobic respiration. In first step, glucose is breakdown into pyruvate in the cytoplasm of the cell. In first step, two molecules of ATP are formed. In second step, pyruvate is further breakdown in the deficiency of oxygen into lactic acid having molecular formula C3H6O3. Due to the formation of lactic acid, it is known as lactic acid fermentation. Let us talk about aerobic respiration in plants. During aerobic respiration in plants, first of all, let us talk about exchange of CO2 and O2 through stomata. As on the surface of leaves, tiny pores are present known as stomata. And in the cross section of leaves, I discussed with you intracellular spaces are present which ensure that all the cells are in direct contact with air. That's why through stomata by diffusion process, gases exchange is sufficient to meet all the requirements of the plants. So, what happens actually during day and during night in the plants? During the day, CO2 is generated during aerobic respiration. That CO2 is further utilized for photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, reverse is happened. CO2 and water combine in the presence of sunlight. Glucose is formed. Along with it, O2 is released out. So, we can say that during the day, O2 released is a major event through stomata by diffusion. But during the night, no photosynthesis occurs. So, CO2 release is a major event during night through stomata by diffusion process. Let us talk about aerobic respiration in animals. Animals have evolved different organs to use O2 for respiration. As you can see in the figure, fishes have gills. In the same manner, we can say that human beings have lungs. In the figure, you can see water flows in through mouth of fishes. That water flows over gills. Then that water releases out. What happens at the level of gills? Gills are richly supplied by blood. That's why the dissolved O2 in water is diffused into the gills. And as we know, gills are richly supplied by blood. So from blood, CO2 is released out into water. Have a look here. Mouth, in bracket it is written water is taken by mouth, then gills is written, water is passed through gills, then blood is written, dissolved O2 is taken from water into the blood. Now have a look on the major respiratory organ of human beings, that is two lungs, one right lung, second left lung. Let us talk about parts of human respiratory. First part, that is nasal passage. Second part, that is larynx, which is also known as Adam's apple. Third part, that is trachea, which is also known as windpipe. Next part, two bronchi. Singular word is bronchus. Each bronchus has a network of bronchioles. At the end of bronchiole, balloon-like or sac-like structures are present, known as alveolar sacs or alveoli. Singular word for this is alveolar sac or alveolus. Okay, let us talk about aerobic respiration in human beings. During aerobic respiration in human beings, first of all, breathing occur, means inhalation, intake of O2, exhalation, release of CO2. During inhalation, when air is taken in this manner as shown on the given page. First of all, air is taken into the body through nostril. Nostril means naak ke chhed. Then that air is passed through nasal passage, which is lined by hairs and mucus. Hairs help to filter the air so that it is become dust free. Mucus stick with the dust. As a result, the air that is entered is dust free. The dust free air is further passed through larynx. Larynx has vocal cords. Vocal cords are vibrated with the help of that air and produce sound. After that air is passed through trachea. Trachea is supported by rings of cartilage. These rings of cartilage ensure that air passage doesn't collapse. Means जब हवा ट्रैकिया, जिसे हम विंड पाइप भी कहते हैं, से पास होती है तो वो चिपक सकती है, तो उसे चिपकने से बचाने के लिए ट्रैकिया इज सपोर्टेड बाय रिंग्स ऑफ कार्टिलेज. आफ्टर that air is passed through bronchus. From bronchus, that air is passed through bronchioles, and finally that air reaches to alveolar sacs, which are also known as alveoli. Alveoli are millions in number. Due to their millions in number, and we can say that they are present in large number, they increase the surface area for gaseous exchange. We will talk about gaseous exchange in next video. Now let us talk about function of, or we can say that the benefit of millions of numbers of alveolar sac. Actually, these alveolar sac increases the surface area and help in fast exchange of gases. As a result of fast exchange of gases, oxygen reaches to our body in few seconds. But if we talk about one more thing here, rate of breathing in terrestrial and aquatic animal, then what will we conclude? We conclude that rate of breathing is faster in aquatic animals in comparison to terrestrial animal. Reason being, terrestrial animals take oxygen present in the atmosphere. Aquatic animals take dissolved oxygen from water. The amount of dissolved oxygen is fairly low as compared to amount of oxygen freely present in air. That's why we can say that rate of breathing is faster in aquatic animals in comparison to terrestrial animals. Hope so concept is clear to you all. Thank you. Have a nice day. Stay safe. Stay healthy at home.